Hello and welcome. It is the final day of April, the 30th day, 2017, heading into May. And let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart as it finished the month of April at $1,350 US. Now, as far as these levels, the 1844 Canadian, pretty close, but they are Friday closes for the Canadian dollar, euro, gold, and silver. But this making all-time highs once again. It has technically broken out above the previous resistance before the hard fork scare. This level, I can't draw straight lines too well, but I mean, resistance has become support here. That's been very strong setup. It's been consistently making higher highs, but short term, this thing is just starting to break out very, very nicely. And I don't have Fibonacci lines on here because where would I need them? Uh, if it's going to correct, you can adjust the Fibonacci to the old numbers that I were using from this level, but I think if it does, the best likely is support in here. I don't know if it's going to do such because it's looking quite bullish right now. But generally speaking, the way I look at technical analysis is when you have a key level and you have a good correction and you take a while to come back to it, I expect a correction. And where you came from is where I expected to correct to, and it came from about 1250. But that's, of course, if it's going to come into play, it would be in line with the 18 average band, and if that situation occurs. It's barely broken out above this number, albeit just a pierce above, but when you see a clear hold, maybe if it's holding and staying above 1400 for more than half a day or so, then this thing can have some very serious gains on the horizons, because when you're breaking key areas, new levels, then you're in the breakout stage, and until you have decent enough gains, it won't be oversold really. Now let's move this on to the weekly time frame, and like the daily, I can't put much Fibonacci on. However, I've been talking about lift off from the band, and that's what it's doing right now, lifting off from the band. And I even mentioned before, all these other previous resistance cases haven't worked out too well in the past, so early indications here doesn't seem so good either. Now, another measure that I try to use in calculating Fibonacci or upside levels, this is one of my old school measures and I still like it today, is where do I think Fibonacci looks good? Like, for example, if the market goes up to 3600, well, then the two key levels would come in here and here. And this represents a level that was resisted, supported, and a level that was resisted and then supported nicely in here. So to me, just by playing around with the numbers, around 3600 I think looks pretty good. If I go up to say 5200, sorry about this, this is just a little, I can fix that easy, but I didn't. But this in here looks pretty good there, but problem, decent pierce here, and yeah, it supported this mark, so I suppose it could count, but I think I would be looking more towards something like this. And I say this because it just usually seems to work out that Fibonacci would meets in the key places, and if anything, maybe this line would be a little lower, and then around 34, 35 as a significant area, which means there's a long ways to go from where this is but to play off. For now, you could do the calculations of the fib from here to here, which is looking up towards this point in here as where I would expect there to be some level of resistance. Now, as I look at charts, whenever a mark just barely breaks resistance, what I never do like this is ever sell. Buying on strength, I think, is a very good idea. I normally wouldn't start selling until I think there's a decent chance I can start going lower, but more importantly, I can get good profits and a good shot to buy back later. Because if I'm just day trading a code like this, I'm not, it's a base currency for myself. But if I were to say sell here, I would be relatively confident that I could buy back here. So that's why normally I'd be looking probably not to sell. And this is just an eyeball thing. I got this on a logarithmic scale. Okay, we went from here to here. What looks good? And this is like a good early indication where maybe I would start my selling spree, but probably look to sell more towards the 1700. Now, markets usually come back to where they came from. Boom, 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 boom. Of course, this one, it really barely broke above it, but obviously it still came back. But the bottom line is, after a good move, I would expect this range to be the next longer term support mark. So once you start to see gains up towards this higher area, then the good bargain buyback price is going to represent 1300. And that will conclude today's video. But I like this word methodology. It's like a methodology, but you just use the math and the numbers game. And then, like a scientist, just go with what the results state and then go from there. All right, then. So take care. And let me just get a quick look at what I think the upside target would be. Let's do the 1350 into, we'll round it to 9. Yeah, 1734. So I'd be looking for an area maybe around here. That looks good. Like, I mean, that's a decent sized chunk. And come here, and then now what situation? Maybe go sideways, maybe go back lower, or maybe keep skyrocketing higher. But an area I think is a good resistance level to pick just as a methodology level. Take care.